Russia planned Kherson torture centers, say international lawyers. Ihor said he was stabbed in the leg with a taser at the Russian detention center in Kherson. CNN, standing outside the Russian detention center in Kherson days after the city was liberated, 29-year-old Ihor still shivered as he recalled what he endured inside. I was kept here for 11 days, and throughout that time, I have screamed. I heard the screaming from the basement. Ihor, who asked CNN not to reveal his last name for his protection, said, "I was stabbed in the legs with a taser. They used it as a welcome." One of them asked what I'd been brought in for, and another two of them started hitting me in the ribs. People were tortured. People they were beaten with sticks in their arms and legs, cattle prods with hooked up to batteries and electrocuted or waterboarded with water, he added. Kherson was the first largest city and the only regional capital Russian troops have able to occupy since the start of the invasion. Moscow's armies took over the city on March 2nd, 2022, and occupied it for several months before being forced to withdraw in early November. After a month-long offensive by Ukrainian forces, the detention center Ihor was held in was a part of the network of at least 20 facilities that Ukrainian and international lawyers said was part of the circulated Russian strategy to extinguish Ukrainian identity. These detention centers are linked. They follow a very similar, if not identical way of behaving when Jordash, head of the Mobile Justice Team, a collective of international investigators supporting Ukrainian office of the Prosecutor General, told CNN. Investigation found that Russian forces followed a very specific blueprint in several occupied areas with clear patterns that point to the overarching plan of Moscow's occupation of Ukraine. The first stage essentially is to detain and, in many instances, kill a category of people labeled as leaders. For example, those who could physically resist the occupation, but also those who could culturally resist it, Jordash said. The second stage is sort of a filtration process where the population that remains outside of the detention centers is subjected to constant monitoring and filtration so that anyone who's suspected of being involved with the leaders or being involved with organizing any type of resistance is also then identified and either deported to Russia or detained in the detention centers and tortured. The Ukrainian flag hanged atop a detention center used by Russian forces to hold and torture Ukrainian soldiers, dissidents, and partisans. Glory to Ukraine now leads at the entrance to the detention center used by Russian forces to hold and torture Ukrainian soldiers, dissidents, and partisans. Jordash said these methods were employed not just in Kherson but in other areas occupied by Russian forces, such as the Kiev suburbs of Bucha and Borodyanka. However, he added the lengthy occupation of Kherson allowed the Russian forces to go even further. The third stage is the extinguishing of a permanent identity, he added. This can include removing the Ukrainian curriculum from schools and confiscating objects considered to be pro-Ukrainian, such as flags or T-shirts in the country's colors. Essentially, the population is locked down so that all traces of Ukrainian identity can be removed, he explained. Ihor's account of the torture he was subjected to while he was detained matches the findings of the mobile justice team and the Ukrainian prosecutor's office. The type of behavior he said he was forced to adopt also lines up with the overarching effort to eradicate Ukrainian identities described by Jordash. We were forced to learn the Russian anthem. If you wanted to have a cigarette or the candy, you had to sing their anthem, Ihor said when he took CNN to the center he was held at on November 23, 2022. When they opened the door, he had to shout, "Glory to Russia, glory to Putin, glory to Shoigu." Sergei Shoigu is Russian defense minister. We were beaten if we didn't do this, Ihor added. Arch, who also did not want us to reveal his last name over security concerns, said he was tortured at the same facility. Ihor's account of the torture he was subjected to while he was detained matches the findings of the mobile justice team and the Ukrainian prosecutor's office. He wasn't alone. Another detainee CNN spoke with Archie, who also did not want us to reveal his last name over security concerns, said he was tortured at the same facility. They beat me, electros electrocuted me, kicked me, and beat me with the batons. Archie 20 recalled. I can't say they starved me, but they didn't give much to eat. Archie said he was lucky enough to be let go after 9 days and after being forced to record the video saying he'd agreed to work with the Russian occupiers. Ukrainian and international investigators also said that they discovered financial links connecting these connection centers to the Russian state. Those detention centers have financial links to the Russian state, Jordasu said, citing documents uncovered by the investigators. These financial documents they show that the civilian administration is being financed from Russia, and the civilian administration is financing the detention centers. So we have very clear patterns and very clear links. CNN has not been able to independently review the documents cited by the investigation. Jordashi said these are just the preliminary result of the investigation, explaining that more evidence of Russian war crimes is still being uncovered and processed. He also said the newly released findings are the helpful indicator of what is happening in the territories currently occupied by Russia, or of what would have happened should Moscow succeed in completely taking over Ukraine. For me, what is interesting about Kherson is you really see the microcosm of the overall criminal plan. What would have happened to the rest of the Ukraine, he explained. What's horrifying as much as the torture is the thought of what would have happened had Russia managed to be successful in its occupation of vast areas of Ukraine. For Jordash, the larger Russian occupation would have led to the unprecedented number of detentions as well as cases of torture and killings. This criminal plan, which involves the commission of war crimes and the crimes against humanity as its very core, you see this moving to the more finer, destructive phase, which seems to suggest that absent success in the original plan, the plan turns into one of the physical destruction, more deaths, more destruction, and the potential genocidal intent, as he said. CNN reached out to the Russian government for comment on the accusations put forward by Ukrainian and the Russian international investigators, but yet to hear back. Russia has repeatedly denied it any and all accusations that it has committed war crimes during what it calls its special military operation in Ukraine. Despite Moscow's denials, CNN teams on the ground witnessed the brutal result of Russian occupation, not just of Kherson, but also places like Bucha, Irpin, and Borodyanka, uncovering evidence of torture and indiscriminate killing of ordinary civilians. In January, Human Rights Watch accused Moscow of the litany of violence of international humanitarian law, and earlier in the week, CNN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said Russia's invasion of Ukraine had triggered the most massive violations of human rights we are living through today. It has unleashed widespread death, destruction, and displacement. Guterres continued. CNN's Sam Kiley, Peter Rodden, and Allegra Goodwin contribute to this report.